We're gonna go way back, because that's where the fun is. Where's the fun? The fun is right here. It's right now. This is Fun and Clown Podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth. September 20th, looks like, 2022. It's episode 162. As always, today's episode is brought to you by G Vegas Buffalo Sauce. Put the whammy jam in your mouth. Go to www.gvegas.webs.com. Check out the video from our new sponsor, Tim Wakefield of the Boston Red Sox. Order yourself some G Vegas Buffalo Sauce. Get it shipped right to your house. Go green, go fresh, and support the local company. Okay, don't pay an extra $5 so some rich guy can drive a limousine around. You pay just a lesser amount, and you support the local guy who's trying to feed his damn family. Okay, that's what you do right there with G Vegas Buffalo Sauce. Let's see. I started out, we're going to go way back because we're going way back with this comedian right here. That's what we do. We review comedians here. We're exploring the history of comedy. So sometimes we review comics. Sometimes we have veteran comics on, and they talk about their experiences in the business. So if you ever wanted to be a young comic, or a young comic, this is the place to be. Because know your past, or you're doomed to repeat it. Today we're going to be talking about Mr. Joey Bishop, and this guy was before my time. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I've dated myself on this, show before. I'm not over the hill, but I ain't no spring chicken. And hey, Joey Bishop, this is probably my father's and grandfather's time, but from what I've read about the guy, man, he kind of he did the stuff comedians want to do nowadays, like in another generation. He did the exact same stuff. They say history repeats itself, so we're going to talk about this guy doing all the major stuff back in his day. He did it, but it's just it was different names, same places. You'll see what I'm talking about as we get going. Appeared on TV as early as 1948, which yeah, I think my parents were born in the 40s, so I mean, this guy's already on TV in the 40s. So had his own talk show, a weekly variety show. He was the host of it. After that, later on, he had a late night talk show with Regis Philbin. Which, if you watch Regis Philbin now, he's like the old dude, the elderly dude of television. Well, back then he was like the young sidekick to Joey Bishop, which shows how far back we're going right here. Okay, Regis Philbin was a young spry man back when Joey Bishop was hitting the big time in comedy. Let's see, that was on ABC. Regis was his sidekick, and the television show was on late night. He was a member of the Rat Pack. Now, when you say the Rat Pack, boom, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra come to mind, Sammy Davis Jr. Well, those are the big names, and they had a couple of smaller names that also toured with them. Peter Lawford, and of course Joey Bishop, which I think he talked about where he said, "Yeah, my name was on the bottom of the bill. If you had to be a dog in order to see it, because it sat so low on the bill, because all the big names were up top, the big draws, and also appearing. But hey, just to be on a bill like that, just to say you performed with Sinatra and Dean Martin, and you were part of the Rat Pack with Sammy Davis Jr. and the Candyman can. Oh yeah, man, I remember the days. Let's see. He was voted number 96 greatest comedian of all time on Comedy Central's 100 greatest comedians of all time, which was done a long time ago. There's been a lot of great comics who were not eligible for that list when they did it. But I mean, this is like, exploring the history of the comedy. This has been the basis for my, going way back with the legends. Let's see, he was born in the Bronx, New York. Drafted into the Army during World War II, made it all the way to sergeant. And let's see, he was stationed at Fort Sam in Houston, Texas. So he's down there. No, down in Houston. That's a mecca. That's like a big mecca for comedy down there. So place you want to be. He actually started out a stand-up act with his brother. They were actually like a teen comedy actor when he first started out. Let's see, got on the Ed Sullivan Show in 1950, which I mean, that was the Tonight Show of the time. Before the Tonight Show it was the Ed Sullivan Show, baby. Everybody remembers the Beatles' appearance on there, and you made it on the Ed Sullivan Show, man. You were like, boom, instant famous like that. I mean, even the Beatles, Ed didn't want to have them on, and they became so big he had to put them on that the fans demanded it. It was like he couldn't be bigger than the show itself, but I mean, if you grew up in my era, it's like you wanted to be on the Tonight Show, but it was so much more special. If you said, I was on the Tonight Show during the Carson era, okay? Sure, it's cool to be on during the Jay Leno era, but if you on during the Carson era, ooh, that was just a whole different level of respect right there. Let's see. He was on the Dinah Shore Chevy show in 1957. Guest hosted the Tonight Show for Jack Parr, which who did it, before Johnny Carson. Jack Parr did it. Let's see. Kept guest hosting after Johnny Carson took over during his era. Guest hosted over 175 times in the 1960s and from 71 to 76, which at the time was more than any other comedian guest hosted. So he was like the top guy guest hosting. And later on, years later, Joan Rivers and Jay Leno broke that record, but he held it for the longest time before they came along and broke it as most guest appearances for the Tonight Show. And, I remember Jay, he was a smart guy. He said when everybody else upped their price because the prices were going up, he stayed the same. And it's like they took him because he was cheaper. So, yeah, he didn't make as much money, but he got more appearances, which made him more famous. So, genius move right there. It's not always about the money, man. You want to lead to the big money, you do the smart move first. How many times you got to perform for free before you get a paid gig? Well, that's the part of comedy right there. So, let's see. Appeared as a guest on Steve Allen's and Jack Parr's Tonight Show. So not only was he guest hosting, he was also appearing as a guest on there as a comedian. Let's see, starting the Joey Bishop Show in 1961, which ran for 123 episodes, which I don't know how many seasons that was. Well, I guess it's all right. I got it right in front of me. Damn. It was 4 seasons on NBC and then later CBS. So I guess he started out on NBC, then went over to CBS. That was geez, when they moved the Tonight Show from LA to New York, okay, when Jimmy Fallon took it over. So it's like big moves going on there in television that you got to make, okay? And Joey Bishop, he's making the moves, man. But you see what I'm saying? I mean, this guy was doing the Tonight Show and the Ed Sullivan Show, and these were the shows, at the time, the big shows, the same thing as the Carson and then the Jay Leno Tonight Show, but just a different era. This guy was doing the big stuff in. Let's see. In 1967, he started a 90-minute late-night talk show, also called the Joey Bishop Show, because of his name recognition. He was already known, so they wanted to keep that name recognition going. Which that's why every episode I could come on and say, "This is Funny Like Clown Podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth," because otherwise you're just gonna know, "Hey, Funny Like Clown Podcast, one hell of a podcast." But if I put it was the Dennis Wirth Show, you see what I'm saying? Boom. So it's like. It's the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson or the Tonight Show with Joey Bishop, or you see, this is Funny Like Clown Podcast with Dennis Wirth. So name recognition right there. And I was working on my resume in comedy last night, and I'd done some shit I even forgot I'd done. And I was like, it's like you have memories of what you did in comedy, but when you actually write it down on a resume in front of you, look, I impressed myself. Like, man, I've done more than I even thought I did when I started. So, but hopefully someday I can get up to Joey Bishop's level here, where I got that Tonight Show to my credit. Let's see. And now the Joey Bishop Show, being on late night, that was in direct competition with Carson's Tonight Show, which I remember Carson had a beef with Joan Rivers, where, he kind of made Joan Rivers into the star she was, having her on as a guest on the Tonight Show. Then Fox TV offered her own late night show, and she accepted it, called up Johnny. Hey, I took my own late night show on Fox. Boom, he hung up on her, never talked to her again. But I think he would have been okay with it if she had just made a courtesy call and said, "Hey, Johnny, listen, you gave me my break. You cut me on. I know I'm going to be competing on you. I'm going to be competing against you, but this is a huge opportunity as a comic. You got to understand that, man. I got my own chance to get on Fox." And I'm sure he would have said, "You know what, have fun with it." But doing it behind his back where he gave her the break, without, checking with him first, which I do that, I give a lot of young comics a break, and what I think is a break, they're turning in their head, to be something it's not. But, I've worked with the biggest names of Boston comedy here. I booked some of the biggest names in Central Massachusetts, and I got kids hitting open mics want to come and tell me how to run things. It's like, well, you do what I've done, then you can come talk to me. But at the same time, the guy who taught me comedy, I love the guy, great friend of mine, but it was like, no matter what I did in comedy, I was always going to be his student, and I realized that it was like I had to break off, and do my own thing eventually. Like, when you're a kid and leave your parents' house, your parents want you to stay there and be their kid forever. At some point, you got to go out and be a man. And so, I mean, I can see both sides of Carson's argument there. So, just clear it, not that even if he had said no, she could have did it anyway. But hey, I tried to clear it with you at least. Could have said. Let's see, but apparently, I don't know. I mean, I've never heard of a beef between Johnny Carson and Joey Bishop, so I assume that Carson must have been okay with it. Of course, I wasn't around back then, so could be wrong about that. I don't know. Let's see. Started the original Ocean's 11, which they've done the remakes. We all know the remakes. They've been very popular. Ocean 11, 12, 13, what the hell they've done there. But he was in the original, okay, to be in the original with the Rat Pack, man. And man, not only was he in Ocean's 11 with the Rat Pack, he performed in Las Vegas at the Sands with the Rat Pack. Those were the days. Just if you could build a time machine and go back to that time, just be in Vegas before the corporations took over. Okay, this was like Vegas when what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Nowadays, what happens in Vegas is all over the freaking internet and Facebook. Okay, but back then it was mafia driven. You had to get dressed up in your best gown for the girls, your best suit and tie for the guys. If you want to get into the big show, you don't just show up nowadays and flip out some money. And no, it wasn't like that. Whole different era back then. And yeah, the Sands with the Rat Pack. And even though he was in the Rat Pack, which I mean, the Rat Pack, they were famous for singing and dancing. That was part of their stuff. He wasn't much of a singer and dancer. Joey Bishop, it wasn't his thing, but he told jokes while the others were singing dances. He was kind of the comic relief for the show. And little known, he wrote most of the material, most of the act's material. So the whole Rat Pack entire act, which was that was the thing. Everybody thought like Dean Martin. Everybody thought he was this big alcoholic, and well, he did like his booze. It was more of a shtick that he did. He wasn't that bad of a, where it was a 24/7 alcoholic thing. It was more he did it because that's what people wanted to see or wanted to know him at. It was a thing that he did. Let's see, he was in the movie Sergeants 3. In 1962. Let's see. He was in the remake of Gunga Din in 1939 and Texas Across the River in 1966. Can't say I've seen any of those movies, but hey, this guy's staying busy in the movies, that's for sure. Well, again, with the Rat Pack, I mean, what would you? Hey, you want to do a movie? What have you done? I performed with the Rat Pack. Yeah, we'll make a movie. Yeah, sure, no problem. I mean, and I mean, I was watching a thing on Woodstock too, and they said the original Woodstock, like the two biggest names on the bill, they had to overpay to get them, but they said it was worth overpaying because once they had those two big names, all the other names would come for less. Okay, so they made up the money, paying the other guys less because they had the two big names that gave them legitimacy. So being in the Rat Mag, that gives Joey Bishop legitimacy. Now, whatever he wants to do, even me, I booked some big names around here, and it's like I ain't getting rich, ain't making any money on the shows. I'm looking at break even, but gives me name recognition. Now, when I go to somebody else and book a show, hey, I've worked with these names of so and so, and that's the business side of comedy right there. Let's see. He was the only member of the Rat Pack to work with a group of young actors called the Brat Pack, okay, which I've never even heard of the Brat Pack, but apparently it was a spinoff of the Rat Pack called the Brat Pack, which was a bunch of young kids. And I guess he appeared as a ghost or something, and then a lot of some of the skits or stuff that they did on stage or whatever it was. But hey, there was money to be made. Let's see. He was in the film Betsy's Wedding in 1990, which now this is getting around our time, 1990s. This is where guys performing on TV in 1948, he's still around in 1990. He was in the film Betsy's Wedding with Molly Ringwald and Alan Sheedy. So these are names are recognizable from our time here. So, which that was cool. I saw on what's the name of the show? The Big Bang Theory. I saw they brought Bob Newhart on there, and Bobby's an old man, and I'll tell you, just to be able to bring him on the show and be able to work with a legend like that, what a thrill that must have been, Even for me, I mean, it was only a cameo appearance, but I had the movie that I just put out, the World Needs a New Superhero, I had a little cameo from Dice in there where he called in on my phone and gave like a little bit of advice on the whole child support issue or something. I mean, just to say, just to say he was in my movie briefly is just a cool to work with the heroes like that. Let's see. He made his final appearance in a non-speaking role called Magdog Time in 1996, which was written and directed by his son. Unfortunately, the critics tore it apart. Got real bad reviews. I guess your son asks you to do something, you want to pass it forward and hope it turns out into a good thing, but maybe not always a smart idea. Let's see. Bishop was portrayed by Bobby Slayton in an HBO film in 1998 called The Rat Pack. So I guess, hey, Bobby Slayton, who's going to play Joey Bishop? He's the guy. But I mean, yeah, just what a different era this guy lived in. And like I said, I mean, the Tonight Show and the Ed Sullivan Show nowadays, it's the Tonight Show still with a different host, and maybe the Joe Rogan podcast. I mean, I can see just this guy building up, doing just different names, but I mean, it's the same path to stardom that we take now. It's just an era later, Let's see. I found this one. You know what? I've talked about so many because we always getting, we ended up with the personal aspects of a comic's life, and most of them say how many times they've been married, divorced, which I'm a father's rights activist, so that kind of stuff interests me. But to show you what kind of a different time this one, he was married in 1941, married for 58 years. Okay, who the hell's married for 58 years nowadays? Nobody. Used to be what? It used to be the old joke if what is 25 was silver and 50 years was gold if you were married. Now it's like 5 is silver and 10 is gold if you can make it that long. Most people make it a year or two, and I guess that's just the day and age we live in. But hats off to this guy. Married for 58 years before his wife passed away. They had one son together. Let's see. I guess Joey Bishop. I mean, he was an old man. He was 89 years old. I guess he was in bad health for a while. Finally, in 2007, at the age of 89, he had multiple organ failures and ended up passing away. But what a legend he left behind, man. I mean, original member of the Rat Pack. I mean, just Ed Sullivan is its own. You got your own late night show, and you're competing against Carson, and you go 123 episodes. It's not like I remember Chevy Chase. He had his one on Fox. Didn't last long. Joan Rivers didn't last long. It sounds like this guy lasted, man. He stuck around, and it's not an easy game to play right there. We go back to on the podcast we did about the late night wars and how dirty it got, and go listen to those podcasts, man. Because I'll tell you, it's a late night dirty battle war, and this guy survived. So hats off Joey Bishop. But hey, different era, same game, man. You get on, pay your dues, you get on the big shows, and I heard Boston comic, Lenny Clark, he's going to be on the Tonight Show coming up, I think this week here. I saw his brother posted that on Facebook. So man, being from Boston, I got to work with Lenny once, and that was quite the thrill. So man, I'm sure Joey Bishop back in the day, a lot of people wanted to work with Joey Bishop. I'll bet Molly Ringwald was one of them, and she got to do it years later. Who's the person you'd want to work with? If you could work with anybody, who's like your big hero in the comedy industry or the movie industry? If you could work with one person, who would that person be? What's your choice? Think about it. Leave it in the comics. Let me know down in the comments who you want to work with. If I could work with, I've already worked with most. Well, I guess yeah, Ed Dice in the movie, but love to open for him live. That'd be cool. This is Fun.com podcast. We got you laughing, we got you thinking, exploring the history of comedy. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tune in and grab some G Vegas buffalo sauce, eat some wings, and listen to the podcast. Till next time, I'm out. Good night, folks.